The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break!
With Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Patrick Walker, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Tuesday, August 1st, 2023, season 19, episode number 13. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We are live from Oxnard, California. Cowboys are heavy into training camp at this point. Pads came on yesterday, so we got a lot to talk about here today. Got Brian, Patrick, Amber here with me. We'll get into some news and notes, some injury updates. Jerry had some comments about Zach Martin that I think we'll mention and talk a little bit about. We'll get some standout moments from these guys, as things that they've seen here through on the first day of padded practice yesterday. And then we're going to talk about the defense. I really want to find out from you guys, this defense is ready to take that next step and be elite. I'm talking very top of the league and what is required of them in order to get there. We'll talk about that in the final segment. So let's get rolling. Let's start first with some news and notes. Yesterday we find out Ronald Jones facing a suspension. Patrick, what do we know?
Ronald Jones suspended the first two games of the coming regular season by the league for violation of the performance-enhancing drug substance abuse policy. Not substance abuse, but PED policy, better way to say it. So he's definitely going to be out the first 2 weeks, and it is key to remember, folks, that he can still practice, be in all team meetings, that he can participate in preseason games. It's just a 2-game regular game suspension. Of course, that's going to send some shockwaves down the depth chart as far as the Cowboys already needing to sort out things behind Tony Pollard. That suspension is going to give some guys like Deuce Vaughn, Hunter Lipke, Malik Davis, Rico Dowdle some leverage that they did not have on Monday. So interesting to see how that plays out as far as how the Cowboys handle Ronald Jones going forward.
How do y'all think that's going to affect this running back position battle, really as the backup in the backup role right now behind Tony Pollard?
Yeah, if you felt like that you were looking for a veteran presence, this affects you in that way. Now, Malik Davis and Dowdle are veteran guys, but if you're talking about guys that, with Ronald Jones, he was a guy that has carried the ball a lot in the National Football League. So if you were counting on him as being one of the three, potentially, that kind of throws things into a little bit of I felt like, though, that this was a position as we got into it that we all really needed to keep an eye on anyway. Could the veterans, show that they're good enough behind Pollard? And if that wasn't the case, I was thinking, okay, well, there's always that Ezekiel Elliott, player situation, and let's see what happens in New England. But there was always kind of going to be that fallback position, or maybe go out and trade for somebody. So yeah, as long as he can continue to practice, I feel like that you could at least get an idea of what you could have with him. Now the first 2 games, I mean, that's pretty significant. You only play so many games. So yeah, like Patrick says, it's going to be up now to Dowdle, to Davis, to those guys, Lipke, to step up and say, okay, we could do this better than what Ronald. If you've had this idea about what Ronald Jones is, then we need to change your mind about him and put ourselves in that picture.
Yeah, and so far, just in general, and I know the pads just came on yesterday, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but based on what I've seen so far, I haven't seen much that has been impressive to me as far as the running back group as a whole. There have been moments, and guys like Deuce Vaughn, he's shown his size. There has been moments where
leave us short guys alone.
No, it was the phrase I was gonna use.
Okay.
Anyways, stop. Okay, Amber, refocus. He has had moments where he's shown speed, and he's been able to, despite his size on the field, he's been a guy that you notice regardless. Yeah. So that has been good, but just overall, I think that passing game has been way better so far rather than the running game, and we'll see how it develops. And prior to the first padded practice, you see them running and guys couldn't really tackle or anything, and you see them playing. But overall, I'm lacking a little bit more from the running back group, and I hope that moving forward we can start seeing a lot more from that group, and also the O-line, how they're opening holes for them.
I think when it comes to Ronald Jones, it's like Brian said, the Cowboys brought him in after the Ezekiel Elliott release because they want that veteran presence, but also he's more of the traditional back. He can give you the power formations and short yardage. But I'm kind of torn on this because on one side of it, you say, well, it's not costing you much to keep him around to see how that fleshes out, and that's a valid argument. But you could also make the argument that you know for a fact now he's not going to be available for the first 2 games. So you probably should give those camp reps to some of the guys that could make the roster and will be available those first 2 games. And like you said, Ambar, although the running back room as a whole isn't necessarily standing out just yet, and I think a lot of that is because the Cowboys are testing that pass game, that deep threat. That's why you see so many connections, Dak Cooks, Dak Lamb, Dak Gallup down the field. But Deuce Vaughn is really showing me something, both as a receiver out of the backfield on those screen routes, but also up those A and B gaps, something that I've been hammering to fans since the Cowboys acquired Deuce Vaughn. Don't let that size fool you. He teleports from behind the line of scrimmage. Suddenly he's at the second level. They can't find him. So if Deuce Vaughn can continue to show things like that, it just makes it that much more challenging for Ronald Jones.
I know I was on the other end of the field when they ran 9-on-7, which is an entirely run period. So you did see, and I know Patrick, you and I pre-show were talking about this a little bit, that the first offensive line versus like the 2s and the 3s on defense, and then with Harper and Cox playing the linebackers, they took the ball downhill on that front 7 for the backup guys, and it was, you could see the backs hitting the hole, and there were holes there. The line did a really nice job of opening up stuff in the running game for that period. There was 2 times where Golston had like a tackle for loss, and then Oso Odighizuwa had a tackle for loss. But it was one of those periods where I was like, I felt good about the running backs at least taking the ball downhill and physical at the defense, and the line did a good job with that. But Ambar, you're mentioning stuff about with Deuce, they're using a lot of different things. I've seen him on the field with Pollard in the backfield, and then Deuce playing as a slot, and they actually ran a couple screen passes yesterday that actually worked. The timing looked good. So anything to get these backs more involved with the passing game. I mentioned too about Rico Dowdle. There was one time where Isaiah Land came off the edge and Dowdle just destroyed him. I mean, knocked him to the ground, and you're like going, oh, okay, that's a full padded practice play right there. The fact, and Land learned, it's like, listen, you just can't come running around the corner and expect to be free. These backs are going to step up and tag you and stuff. So I think I saw more because of the pads yesterday than I had the previous practices with these guys.
Yeah, I will say this too. When it comes to practice and training camp versus games, linebackers and running backs, those are 2 positions, in my opinion, that's most difficult to be able to evaluate. Because the primary role of both doesn't happen until you can actually have live contact where you're taking people to the ground. It is, I'm evading your tackle and I'm trying to tackle you. And neither one of those 2 things can really happen out here in training camp practice. So we'll hold on being able to make that final determination on what the running backs are just yet. But again, some small things I think you can pick up on right now.
Well, there were just a couple of things that just those flashes. They always talk about. When you watch practice, you're trying to just take everything in, and there's things that you miss. I know that Parsons had a sack here in practice yesterday. Exactly. And I was watching it, but I couldn't figure out who it was. And then all of a sudden, all these folks that do a great job with their socials, that do the clips. I'm like, oh, Tyron Smith playing on 1 foot today. Sometimes you're watching practice and you're like, what did I miss? What did I miss in that particular thing? So, but you're right. It shows up with the linebackers and running backs more.
And it's just the news, the timing of the news on Ronald Jones for him could not have come at much of a worse time, because a few hours prior, Mike McCarthy stood on that podium and pointed at Rico Dowdle and said, we're thrilled to have him back, and pointed at Malik Davis and said he looks like he's ready to make the year 2 jump. And then a few hours after, McCarthy says that the suspension comes down. So
it ain't helping him.
It ain't helping.
All right, let's move on. Let's get some injury updates. We had a couple guys on the injury report yesterday. They were added to the injury report. One person that seemed like he might be making some strides to come back from the injury report. Patrick, what do we know right now?
Trevon Diggs currently battling a sore/bruised toe. He was doing individual drills on Monday late last week. Spoke with Mike McCarthy, and he said he expected that Trevon could potentially be back as early as this week. He's trending in that direction, Trevon is, so good news there. Cowboys, though, are being deliberately cautious with their $97 million man, and that just makes sense this early in camp. Sam Williams, he exited practice on yesterday, first padded practice with what is being described as a shoulder strain. Cowboys don't show concern for it. I saw Sam walking around yesterday. There's no type of apparatus on his shoulder. He looks to be okay, but I don't know that I expect to see him on the field today. Maybe they'll be cautious with him as well. Dorrance Armstrong didn't practice yesterday. He was with the rehab group. Hamstring tightness is what is being told, what Brian was able to get on that. Cowboys are not concerned about that as well. But again, now's the time to be cautious on some of these key players. We'll see if Dorrance can get back on the field at any point this week for practice.
All right, let's go ahead real quick. I wanted to move on to a topic that we've talked about last week. Zach Martin not showing up at training camp, presumably holding out for a new deal. Jerry had a comment a couple days ago that I thought was worth mentioning and talking about. Here was his quote. He said he's been at the top of the money the whole time talking about Zach Martin. If you make that adjustment, then you don't have the money to pay the guys on their first contract. If it has nothing to do with him. It's not about precedent. It's about facts. We need the money to pay Parsons. We need the money to pay the players that we got to pay in the future. That's a fact. What are your thoughts on that comment?
I kind of feel like, though, that this reminded me very much of the Joneses, I think, have learned their lesson on this one. And it goes back to, Derek, you sent me to the Combine one year, and it was when Ezekiel Elliott's contract was kind of in flux. And we did an interview with Stephen Jones, and he was talking about it starts with Todd Gurley. It's going to be Todd Gurley, and this is where it's going to start. And we're all kind of looking at each other like, does it really have to start at that much? You know, kind of a thing. I think the Joneses, I think they know they can't come out and talk and say, this is a Hall of Fame player. We have to have this guy. This is a Ring of Honor guy. If we're going to the Super Bowl, you can't really say that, because I think it's come back on them before on some of these contracts. So I think Jerry holding the line, they know what Zach Martin is. I talked to somebody before practice yesterday that would kind of know what was going on with things, and they were just not sure, when this would all, they didn't anticipate him missing any games, but we don't know right now. I don't think he will. But the thing about it is, I think the Cowboys have to play things really close to the vest on this one. Jerry's right about the contracts he's got. I mean, they got that Diggs contract done. I didn't think that was going to be an easy one for them to do. And the fact of the matter is, they got it done less than market value. Wasn't the highest paid player at the position. That's right in Stephen Jones and Anna Pacifica's wheelhouse right there. You give us a little wiggle room that we can play with here. And I think the same thing with Zach Martin a little bit. Maybe they'll find a way to find some wiggle room. But I think Jerry and Steve and Mike McCarthy have to be careful about talking about Zach in a way that we all know what Zach really, really is. I think that burned them in the past. I don't think they want that to be used against them in this particular time that they're dealing with him.
Pay the man. Pay the man. I understand what Jerry is doing, and I think Brian's right in that the Cowboys are probably leveraging the situation in the media more than they might have in the past. I think when it comes to a player like Zach Martin, everyone knows the consensus is, even despite what Jerry might say in front of a camera, in front of a hot mic, the consensus inside of the building is the same outside of the building. Zach Martin is the best player on this team. And he also has the leverage because he's on an offensive line that is still trying to sort itself out. He's the only thing that you can count on, that you can point at right now and say he's ready to go. Terrence still looks good, but we're still working him back. Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith on the left side. Tyron said yesterday he's working to get chemistry with the young man. So, again, the only thing you can really point at, shouts out to Tyler Biadasz as well, is say Zach Martin. Yeah. So the leverage is there. The caliber of player is there. You pay that man. But then, while it's true that you also have to pay Micah, and then CD is coming due, and you have these other things to worry about. Dorrance is another guy. He's coming up due as well for another contract. you can massage the salary cap however you need to in a crunch. We've seen teams do it on a perennial basis. But then also, to that point, if you know you need to pay Micah and you know you need to pay CD, example, Zach Martin is set to hit the salary cap for $11 million this year, $23 million next year. If you get another long-term deal done on Zach Martin, you can theoretically reduce the cap hit for year 1 and 2, especially definitely year 1, and that allows you more leverage to be able to start negotiating with Micah, negotiating with Lamb. So it can be worked. I understand what Jerry is doing, but to quote Dak Prescott again, pay the man.
Before you go, Amber, I have a question for you, though. You said the leverage is there when you were talking about Zach. Where's their leverage? Because the way I look at it now, I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
Steal my point now.
I'm sorry. Go ahead and take your point.
Come on.
Sorry.
Come on.
We are about to say the same
Okay,
exact
good.
thing
Well, you
because,
make the point, yeah.
we've had this conversation
yeah.
off the air and we went through the math. You did the calculation and all of that. And initially I was with you, Patrick. I'm like, to me, he had all the leverage. It's Zach freaking Martin. What are you talking about? Just pay him. And that was my thought at the beginning of camp. But the longer we go and another day goes by, you start thinking about it from the Cowboys' perspective, and you're like, okay, they really are the ones who have the upper hand here because we know that every practice that he's not here, that's $50,000 off. What do you call
The
this?
fine off
A
of
fine.
that,
A
yeah.
fine. Derek did the math. It came to about
If
$1
he
million.
misses all of camp, he's going to be over $1 million.
Absolutely.
Over $1 million
Over $1 million.
for whole training camp. Now,
And
when
I'm
you-
talking about training camp in Oxnard. I'm not talking about even when we
Yeah.
get back
We
to,
get back,
to
which
Dallas.
is insane. But
Right.
as soon as you get into the regular season, that's a whole
Game
nother
checks.
yeah, that's insane amount of money.
That's a lot of money.
But again, from Cowboys' perspective, you look at it. We talk about the chances that it gives these other guys to get in reps and practice time. We know Zach Martin is a veteran. We know how professional he is. We know you're not doubting in his game. Like, you're not doubting him, and you know he's that type of guy that can be plugged in right away whenever. So I keep thinking, I'm like, okay, does Zach really have any kind of leverage unless there's an injury that occurs out here and you're like, oh, okay, that might be a big
Ultimately, the only leverage I think he has is if he's at a point in his life where he's like, I'll retire.
Yeah.
That's the only leverage he has.
but then
Because if he's not willing to retire, all he's doing is just hemorrhaging money. And I'm just going to tell
Yeah.
you from my perspective, I got a wife at home and kids at home.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, Dad, why are you sitting at home and losing money for the family? Like, you need to get back to work. I don't see that being much leverage for him.
He retires, he has to pay money back.
Right,
That's something
yeah.
else. that he
Everything's
has
going to cost him
Yeah,
money.
everything's going to cost him at the end of the day. I think that maybe the Cowboys can do this. I know there's a $7 million valley between the top guy and what Zach's looking at right now. Could the Cowboys find a way to go halfway on that? You know, could you just old school? Hey, we'll give you a
something.
we'll give you a $2.5 million bump. You know, here we go. Would that be something that would work for you? But yeah, I mean, it's clear. You watch practice out here, you notice he's not there.
Correct.
You notice
Absolutely.
it. I mean, and I
Leverage.
appreciate what Farniak has done, but there's others that haven't been so good. And there's a side of me that's like, him and Steele work really well together. They really do. And I was excited about seeing that once again. But yeah, him sitting at home, and they're kind of like, we just don't know. He's going to have to make the decision on
I
this
don't.
one.
I don't think Zach is looking to reset the market. I think
No.
he's just looking for, like you said, an increase that better shows the appreciation of what he brings to the
Right.
team and to
Right.
the league. But then, as far as the leverage part goes, I don't believe he has 100% leverage, because whenever there are fines involved, the team is always going to have that leverage that they can hold over the player. But as practices go along and you see Zach absent, and again, Farniak, he's coming along, but this season is so pivotal. I can't stress it enough. You talk about the acquisition of Brandon Cooks and Gilmore on the defensive side of the ball. The pieces have been added. The expectation is there. Dak is working with these wide receivers. Tolbert may be taking a step forward. Gallup's supposed to have a bounce-back season. It's now. Mike has taken over the play-calling duties. So are you really, from Jerry's perspective, you have to look in the mirror and say, am I really willing to push this to the limit and potentially risk the entire season by not having Zach Martin, even for 1 or 2 games.
Yeah.
Because those first 2 games, I mean, the first one is a division game.
Yeah.
So
His leverage will be if something happens to Tyron Smith. That's where his leverage will be. Because what will happen is it'll force them to move Tyler Smith back to tackle. And now you got 2 guards you got to fill.
Do you think
that'll
he
be
would
his leverage?
actually even consider missing a first regular season game?
Zach?
I
Yes.
don't. I
a lot of money, man.
I
That's a ton of money.
I haven't
think
been right about this yet.
I don't know
Yeah.
because if I'm Zach, if I allow them to believe I won't, then I might as well report right now.
Right.
I might as well report right now.
But that also goes back to the point, like, Brian, when you said, okay, what if they decide they're going to give him something? Let's say it's $2 or $3 million. Well, guess what? If he misses all the way through the first game, he's probably already chewed into over $2 million at that point of money that he's lost.
Yeah.
So whatever they give him, if they give him $2 million at that point, he just basically is just paying for fines at that point.
Yeah.
He's just he's missed the game check. He's missed all the training camp.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of money. So for every day he's out here, he's actually losing money. Well, and whatever the Cowboys would give him would then only be that you'd only be subtracting what he missed.
He's got 2 more weeks of camp right here, right? Yeah. We got this week. We got 3 weeks. Yeah. So if he gets through this week and then reports next week, then then the fines, that everything we're talking about, it's not the number of the $1 million, which you've done the math correctly.
And also keep in mind, the team doesn't have to levy those fines.
No, they do.
No, they do. Under collective bargaining,
the
they do.
CBA changed.
New,
Because that used to be the way that it would. Now it is a cutting.
Okay, well, there you go.
It has to happen.
There you go.
Every day you miss, you are going to be fined.
It's a race against the money equation.
That's exactly right.
All
right, we're going to take
players negotiated that themselves. How about that?
We're going to take our first break. We're going to come back. We're going to get into some standout moments. These guys are going to tell you what they've been seeing out here at practice, particularly yesterday when the pads came on. We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Cowboys fans, after that move, we've just coined the term Rowdy Replay. Let's roll back the tape.
Okay, there's our mascot Rowdy cheering on the boys. And now he's on his phone, on his Bank of America mobile banking app?
Staying on top of his finances with his virtual financial assistant, Erica.
Bank of America's digital tools are so impressive. Cowboys fans just can't stop banking. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/can't-stop-banking.
Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. Member FDIC.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Hey Cowboys fans, ready to spice up your next watch party? Bring Yo Quiero guacamole and be the game day hero. Yo Quiero means I want, and we know you want great, fresh tasting, ready to serve guacamole for your home gating and tailgating events. Made with real avocados and the perfect blend of spices, it will be the star of any party. You can find us at your local Albertsons or Tom Thumb in the deli section. If you can't find it, talk to your store manager and tell them, Yo Quiero guacamole.
Back to the break.
We have this for you today. Do you eat, sleep, breathe Dallas Cowboys football? Tell us how you spice up the game for a chance to be named the 2023 Cowboys Fan of the Year, presented by Captain Morgan, and win an exclusive prizes plus a trip to the Super Bowl of 58. Nominate yourself or another today at DallasCowboys.com/Fan of the Year.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break, live from Oxnard, California. This segment brought to you by Blockchain.com.
Ding!
All right, let's get some standout moments. I want to get a standout moment, standout player, something that caught your eye, particularly yesterday when the Cowboys had their first padded practice. Amber, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, I don't want to sound like a broken record, because it happens every single year out here at training camp. And that's the wide receivers. They always stand out at training camp. That's how it is. It's just more to their benefit, the way these practices go. But something about this time, though, that I see a certain spark, speed from the wide receivers group. Yesterday, a guy that really stood out for me was Kevonta Turpin. He's a guy that even last year you were wondering, okay, how can he be that tool, that little gadget weapon in the offense? How can the Cowboys use him? And they're really trying him out here in different ways. And he has been speedy. He has been good with his hands catching the ball. And also to point out, for the quarterbacks, Dak, I think he's had some great throws, but also Will Grier, he has stood out to me as far as like he's kind of moving up ahead. So far, he's had a better training camp than Cooper Rush. Grier is looking really, really good, and some of those throws has been pretty impressive to me.
For me, I'm going to one of the positions that all eyes are on, and that's the kicker competition between Tristan Vizcaino and Brandon Aubrey. Yeah, they're not out here, and because you can notice the camera's still standing. The camera's still standing. After what was a rough warm-up late last week, they acquitted themselves very well yesterday in the Mojo moment. Both Aubrey and Vizcaino went 3 for 3, respectively, in the Mojo moment from 38, 44, and 48. So long road ahead as far as this competition is concerned, but very promising start, especially coming off of what we saw when we were doing our last show. So it looks like they're on the right track. But again, I'm still of the mindset that the Cowboys are very willing to add a veteran later in camp if that competition doesn't go well. And then I'm also looking at Jabril Cox. And I know I mentioned this before, but Jabril Cox just looks like the LSU version of Jabril Cox. He looks quicker, he looks more decisive, he's playing with muscle memory and not overthinking it, and he's really making an impact every time I happen to look over at him to see what he's doing. He's reading, he's reacting, so things look good there. And if they can get Jabril Cox, the LSU version, which is the version they were hoping to get in the 4th round, then you've solved the LB3 equation, and then you work for depth behind that.
These offensive tackles need Micah Parsons to take a day off. They really do. He needs a veteran day. I think I saw him walking as a group over to Mike McCarthy's dorm room over here.
Ask for a day for him?
Yeah, they want Micah to take a day off. Yeah, and that's always the low-hanging fruit when you talk about players for the Dallas Cowboys. But it's the thing that comes to mind for me is we saw so many posts this summer with Micah Parsons doing things, whether in Austin or other parts of the country, training with people, meeting with Andrew Whitworth, the offensive tackle, the very fine tackle, Super Bowl winning tackle, about how to break guys down, how to manipulate his rush and stuff like that. It's just showing you what he's doing out here. All that stuff that he did, the rope, pulls, the running, the jumping, everything that he did is showing up here on this field, and it came on when the pads were on, and he's understanding this. He gets Tyron Smith's weight all the way out on his left foot, and he just Reggie White hump moves him, that hump move, and it gets him knocked off, and he's being this disruptive, and that's what Cowboy fans are like. What more can Micah do? How high can he continue to raise the bar as a player? Because you're seeing it out here right now. You're seeing everything he did this summer is showing up on this field behind us right now. And that, again, that's the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Yesterday watching practice, typically when you're watching these practices, you tend to root more for the offense just because those are the exciting plays that are happening, the flashy plays and all that. And I'm watching practice, I'm like, oh, all right, there's Micah Parsons again, as if that was a bad thing, but he would end that play right after or as soon as it started. So he and also DeMarcus Lawrence, he has been another guy that has been getting there.
Parsons is just unreal, and there was one particular play, the play where he was lined up on the right edge against Tyron, and then Michael Gallup was going to chip, and both Gallup and Tyron just got walked. Micah did the inside step and teleported in the backfield, and that was the end of the play. And I literally, without even realizing it, I cursed out loud because I was like, holy blank. based on what I saw. Like Micah Parsons, no matter where they line him up, no matter who they line him up against, he is just owning it. So, like Brian said, there might be a petition going around for Veteran Day for Micah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'd say it's up to your quarterback threw the ball well yesterday. I know there was a clip about the interception and stuff like that, read, say what you want on that. But overall, I thought Dak threw the ball well. If you watch how the routes were developing, and guys, whether it was Cooks, I'll tell you what, the guys kind of catching, and Ambar brought this up but Jalen Brooks, the rookie from South Carolina who they drafted late, he's shown up not only when the non-padded practices catching the ball, but in the pad practice yesterday, catching the football. Good route runner, knows where he needs to be, not making mistakes. I was watching these guys. I was watching these guys, over on the platform standing by the receivers, and they are really working tirelessly on steps, driving on the ball, but also extending. Not body catching or anything like that. So, good job by young Brooks and the other wide receivers. And Dak, I felt like, with the exception of the pass that Hooker intercepted, I kind of felt like Dak was just trying to throw that one away because it was just so poorly thrown at that time. But still, the rest of the day, I thought he was pinpoint where he needed to be.
The ball's coming out hot. Also, keep an eye on Neville Gallimore. First padded practice, Gallimore had a very strong practice. You talked about Chauncey Golston making a play.
Yeah.
And we know Osa's going to make a play coming off a career year. But pivotal year for Neville Gallimore, especially with the addition of Mozzie Smith. And there'll be packages where Hankins and Mozzie are up against or lying side by side. What does that mean for Gallimore? Yesterday, on at least one particular rep, Gallimore versus Tyler Smith, that's some real strength that he's going against. Yeah. He got Tyler going full body to the left, and then he just threw him to the ground. And there was Tyler on the ground, and Neville was already in the backfield. So good day, good start to padded practice for Gallimore as well.
All right, we're going to take our final break. Let's come back. Let's talk about this defense. We've mentioned Micah Parsons. We're going to talk about what has to happen for this defense, including for Micah, to take them from really, really good, maybe even great last year, to being elite and being the top defense in the league. We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Want to use the Cowboys locker room's favorite products? Check out the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. Right now, you can get the Jack Black Playmaker, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The Playmaker includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word Cowboys. The Jack Black Playmaker, $10, free shipping.
SeatGeek has your back no matter what kind of fan you are. So whether you're a diehard fan or a don't really care fan, a we got 'em next time fan or we'll never win again fan, a here for the tailgate fan or a first one through the gates fan, SeatGeek not only makes buying and selling tickets easier than ever before, they made just about everything else easier too. So whether you're a here every week fan or haven't been here in years fan, SeatGeek has you covered. Download the SeatGeek app today. SeatGeek, your ticket to great seats.
Welcome back into Dear Doctor, the show where I answer life's questions with an ice-cold can of Dr. Pepper. Sheila, let's hear from our next caller, would you?
Dear Doctor, my friend supported me during a tough time, but what's the right gift that says, thanks for being a shoulder to cry on?
Okay, this one's easy. I say give her a delicious Dr. Pepper. Nothing says, thanks, girl, better than a one-of-a-kind soda. Yes, any Dr. Pepper flavor will do. Now, just a reminder that I don't need to be a real doctor to know that Dr. Pepper is the one you deserve.
Back to the break.
Dallas Cowboys Training Camp 2023 is here. Brought to you by American Airlines. Watch the team practice on selected dates through August 15th in sunny Oxnard, California. Admission is free. For more information, visit dallascowboys.com/training camp. One of the hottest Oxnard practices we've had, right? Training camps.
Oh,
still
yeah.
warm. We've been out here a long time.
It's
right?
been in the 80s.
I mean, I shouldn't complain because
been
back
80s
home it's
triple digits.
Back home it's 107 every day, and it's nice out here at night and all that. But this is one of the warmest ones we've had.
Yeah, no doubt.
Especially when you're out here all day long.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you feel like they practice a long time? I felt like with Garrett, we were out here for like 3 days practicing.
Hour and a half, 2 hours, yeah.
Yesterday
It's not
did
a long
feel
practice.
a bit
You feel
quick.
long?
It felt it was over pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Practice did, so.
Man, I could have had all my film work done by the time.
I'm just thinking about. I'm thinking about what it used to be in Wichita Falls when it was 2 practices
with
every
you.
day.
I was with you.
2 hours, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, full pads for both. Like it was a different
I
time.
was with you.
God.
The
Yeah,
reason
it was a
we're
different
here in Oxnard is because of Wichita Falls.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll never forget Jerry Jones standing on that tower. It was myself and Larry Lacewell.
That was
And
when you were still working in
yeah,
scouting.
still working
yeah.
in scouting. I was standing on that tower with Jerry, and he looked at Lace and goes, "This is madness. This is absolute madness." It was either
so
it
hot.
was Death Valley, California, or Wichita Falls were the 2 hottest places in the country when we were training. We're lucky we didn't have a player go down.
And
at
there
those
was
camps.
no bubble or anything like that. Like they were practicing outside for both of these practices.
Yeah.
It was at least mid-90s, maybe 100. It was hot.
It was
really hot.
there was some days where it's like 102, 103, 107, 108.
It was different.
Remember they had all those real quick. They had all those IV beds.
Yeah.
You went into the locker room and there were 50 beds that were ready. It was like
You're gonna need it.
Yeah, it's like they had these like just lay down. You need an IV. I'm like in the personnel department laying in the IV bed.
Welcome back. It is the 3rd segment of the Break Real Life from Oxnard, California.
I was out there running. It was
And
crazy.
we're going to talk defense now. We got a little bit of time here. I want to get into this defense, and I want to figure out what this defense needs to do at this point to take that next step, because I think they're considered across the league to be one of the better defenses in the league. I don't think they're at the point where they're considered the best defense in the league. San Francisco 49ers are a team where I think most people think that's probably the head of the class. But what does Dallas need to do? What is if you had one thing that they had to improve on from last year, what do they need to do in order to take them to that next
Can I
level?
give you 2 real quick?
Sure, give me 2.
I'll try and do 2 quick. You know me, I'm never quick at doing anything. I think they need to find out, they need to get Damone Clark playing well, and they're going to need to get Sam Williams playing well. If those two things hit for them, because I think everything else is kind of in place. I think the corners are in place, the safeties are in place. I'm just worried about, like I say, give me Damone Clark playing at a really high level with Leighton Vander Esch, and give me Sam Williams unblockable that was making, like in his short reps that he was getting, tackles for loss, double-digit tackles for loss. Give me those 2 things. This defense has got a chance to be that top defense.
2 things for me, because they're going to take the ball away. That feels like a foregone conclusion. Point number 1. Stay healthy, which now means get healthy. When you talk about Donovan, Izzy, Trayvon, Sam. So get healthy and stay healthy, because on paper, you have arguably the best defense in the league. On paper, right? So that's the first and primary part of the equation. Second part of the equation is stop the run. That's what you got Jonathan Hankins for via trade last year. That's why you doubled down and used the 1st-round pick on Mozzie Smith. Stop the run. If this team with this personnel set and this defensive coordinator can stop the run and force teams to pass and deal with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence in that pass rush, and deal with, if Damone Clark has the year 2 jump, a healthy Leighton Vander Esch, and then forcing the ball out to the boundaries inside, nickel corner, Deron Jordan when he comes back, Trevon Diggs, Stephon on the boundaries, and in the back you got Dono, Jaron Kearse flexing, and you got Malik Hooker. So again, for me, it starts with stopping the ball, and if they can do that, where do you go? Because you can't run, but you can't pass. So good luck. So stay healthy and then stop the run.
Those were going to be my exact 2 points. So thank you, Patrick, for already explaining that.
We're on the same page.
Yeah,
then. Yeah, there we go.
But I mean, I don't know what else I could even add to all of that you guys said. I absolutely agree with all of it. The only thing I would say, just keep being able to create takeaways. Get your hands on the ball. We saw that last year and how well it worked for them and how much it actually, they had to help the offense last year. We still don't know what this offense is going to look like once they start playing in the regular season and how much more productive can they be. But let's say if Dak keeps throwing the balls or the receivers don't catch it, let it bounce from him and then give the ball away, you're going to need to have your defense there to kind of help get that ball back for you. So just being good with their hands once again and creating those takeaways, creating interceptions, and helping your offense as much as you can in that way.
Amber makes a really good point, though, about that, because how about Mike McCarthy helped this defense? How he calls plays, how he manipulates offense, how they score points, how they control the ball. Those are all things that can, all of a sudden you make opponents one-dimensional. What's the one thing Dallas could do? And get after the passer.
Coming at you, yeah.
They come after you there, and they can cover on the back end. So, absolutely, Mike McCarthy can help you a lot if you're Dan Quinn on that defense.
Where does Micah Parsons, we know he's a phenomenal player. He has been in the running for Defensive Player of the Year in each of his first 2 years. But what parts of his game can you identify where you're like, man, this is where if Micah does this, he's going to be easily, as he says, he wants to be that unanimous decision for Defensive Player of the Year. What is that thing that if he does it, it'll get him there?
If he starts creating turnovers. If all of a sudden he is going into the pocket and he's slamming the ball out of quarterback's hands, or he's on the rush and he doesn't quite get there and now he's tipping a ball in the air, if he becomes the guy that can do that, where all of a sudden every time that he's near the quarterback, it's a potential turnover. That's the thing for me with Micah Parsons. He does everything else so well. He tackles, he finishes. Can he create turnovers? And if he's creating turnovers, this defense will go a long way to being that top defense, again, we're talking about. I'm
right there with that. I think that if he adds that to his repertoire, best player in the league. And that's even if you factor in Aaron Donald. And this is something that Micah talked about this offseason. He wants to be the disruptive player. He wants to be in the Aaron Donald type conversation. And that's not always going to mean that you have to get, 15, 20 sacks a season. Sometimes that means recognizing that you need to get your hands up in the passing lane and do a J.J. Watt and, create a tip drill for a guy to get that takeaway. So if he can do that, and I will also say he's improving in his run defense, but if he can learn when to change gears from going or teeing off on a quarterback to saying, okay, I recognize this play midway and I peel off and I track this running back down toward the sideline. If he can improve upon that as well, he'll be unstoppable. And we saw him teleport in the backfield yesterday on padded practice to shut down the running back. So he looks like he's on track for that second thing I said.
I would say the only other thing that I can think of just to say something, it would be to stay level, like maintaining his ego, because so far we've seen opposing teams not really being able to take him away and handle him. But let's say year, three? Three. We're in year 3, and now teams maybe start figuring out how to kind of stop him for a few more seconds and handle him. But then that's messing with his head, and we know that's one thing, that when he gets too in his head, it can throw him off a little bit. And also, what happens when, let's say, that creates opportunities for other guys on the line? That makes him upset. We're all on the same team, but you know how he is. He's such a competitive nature. Yeah. So just staying level, keep going at it, and not letting anything that happens just get to his head.
Like he didn't want to come off the field in Minnesota during that blowout.
For example.
Yeah, again, Amber makes a really, really good point about that, because we did see a team take him out of a game. We did see Philadelphia take him out of a game where all of a sudden they made him play indecisive. So maybe to Amber's point, again, with you making the last point, you make the best point.
Thank you.
So to me, the ability for him to have that awareness that, okay, this is what they're trying to do to me. They're trying to make me play slow. They're not letting me play quick. And so his ability to adapt to what teams are trying to do to him, well said on your part.
And here I was just saying something to say something. Turns out it was
You're never
okay.
just saying something to say
something. I think it's actually maybe the best point. I really do.
That's one.
They made him play slow. How do you stop Micah Parsons? You make him play slow. Philadelphia made him play slow.
And that's one thing that can be his weakness. Yeah. It's just the mental part of the game, because he does tend to get frustrated. And
absolutely.
If he can
he's aggressive.
Yeah, he is. But sometimes it gets the better out of him.
It can work against you.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree with that. That was actually where I was going to go if you didn't, was that Philly game showed you something. And best believe in the NFL, when teams show you a way to do something against a particular player, other teams are looking at that and they're like, how can we take advantage of that? Not everybody has a Jalen Hurts, so not everybody's going to be able to do what Philadelphia did. But that being said, there will be teams that will look for those types of plays, those types of scenarios to get him in those moments when he can be indecisive. And if they can make him indecisive, that slows him down. That helps the offense.
But all right, we appreciate. Best believe Michael looked at that film.
Yeah,
all
absolutely,
summer.
yeah. As he should.
So the defensive coaches,
you gotta get yourself to the point where you understand where your weaknesses are, and you got to be working on those because they're going to exploit them. Yep. Absolutely. All right, we appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back on Thursday. Get into a little bit more. We got some more padded practices. We've got a padded practice today. And then a walkthrough tomorrow, then another practice on Thursday. So, till then, for Brian Broaddus, Patrick Walker, Amber Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!